Rob Heinrich, if he would lead us in the pledge, please.
Yes, sir. If everyone would please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Schroth, if you're speaking, you're muted, sir.
Yeah, I was having a little trouble there. Thank you. At this point in time, Jared, looks like we need a roll call.
Yes, sir. Bart Barker.
Here.
Tammy Blank.
Here.
Cinda Brode.
Here.
Julia Tamarki Kukuro.
Present.
Tom Harley.
Here.
Mr. Kerr.
Present.
Mrs. Leeper.
Present.
Mrs. Lowry.
Present.
Mr. Schroth.
Here. Thanks, Jared. First of all, would like to welcome everybody and thank you all for attending this evening. Again, we're doing this meeting virtually. I just have a couple of very brief remarks. I know that the situation has been changing because of the COVID over the last week or so. I do want to reassure the public that the board and the administration are working diligently to try to chart out the best path forward for all concerned, especially our students. And I want to compliment the public on, especially those parents and their patience and understanding. It's really been great. It is very much appreciated. And we also would ask that as things unfold over the next several weeks, for that continued patience and understanding, knowing that we're doing everything we can to provide your children the best education possible under the circumstances. Jared, do we have anybody that signed up for public comment?
We do not, sir.
Okay, is there anybody here from IAEA, ASME, SGA, or Stuka?
It's Paul McHugh, Mr. Schroth. No comments from IAEA tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Anyone else? Nothing heard. Mike, it looks like it's your turn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to take this moment to thank our staff, students, and families for all their work and diligence with regards to adhering to the safety plan during these turbulent times. I know I've inundated with families with emails and messages, and the goal is not to inundate them or to annoy them. The goal is just to do our best to be open and transparent about the obstacles and hurdles we're facing. We're going to continue to do that. I'm glad to say that the plan we put together is working. The framework that we put together is allowing us to stay open where we see many other schools closing at this current time. And the situation and the climate we're working in is getting more and more difficult, and we have to be vigilant and all continue to work together and make sure that we can remain open and educate our kids. And I hope everyone has a happy Thanksgiving. And I'm excited to hear tonight from the middle school recognition of the junior high tech ed department. And that's all I have, Mr. President.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Ron, looks like the solicitor's report is next.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, I just want to comment on what the district's had to do is it's no different than what we've been seeing throughout the other 45 districts we represent and across the state, across the county. Most recently, I was a presenter at Penn State, and we were talking about contact tracing and talking about quarantine procedures and things of that nature. And it's very scattered across the Commonwealth as to what different districts are doing. So you may feel like, you guys are on an island trying to do something different, but you truly are not. We were talking to administrators over in Montgomery County as well as Philadelphia County who decided to, they were forced to shut down today by their Department of Health. So again, I truly believe and support what this board administrator you guys are doing. I really do tout you guys as being up there and making these decisions. And honestly, I just wanted to kind of just give some accolades because it is difficult across the state and what we're seeing and how we're handling it and how the districts are responding. But I think Indiana is just doing a really nice job of trying to navigate that and being transparent while doing it. So that's all for me, Mr. President. Thank you.
Okay, Ron, thank you. Mike, I'll turn it back over to you for the first presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I'm pleased to welcome our administration from the junior high. They will come forward and give a brief presentation about an accolade the junior high tech ed department has received. And I got to give the teachers an immense amount of credit. They have working to really grow their area, grow their expertise in their department. And I think tonight's award is reflective of that. With that said, I'll turn it over to Dr. Minnick, if you're okay with that, sir.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir, we can.
Thank you. Thank you. I just, in cooperation with our dynamic team, we prepared a few notes. If you can just indulge me, I'm going to read in order to stay organized and stay on track for what looks like a long agenda for this evening. We believe that the 2020 TEAP Award reflects the significant enhancements made to the program to incorporate STEM philosophy and engineering design. The program at the junior high has shifted from a project-based program to more of a process-based program where students are engaged in engineering design problems in which collaboration and 21st century skills are emphasized. Throughout the course of the 2019-2020 school year, the junior high took part in a showcase or a STEM symposium that welcomed numerous local school district teachers and administrators to tour the junior high facilities as well as the senior high, and essentially gave them a sneak peek into our tech ed program. We had overwhelmingly positive feedback. A gentleman by the name of Brant Hunsel, who is a STEM consultant for PDE, toured our program and was duly impressed. It was he actually who suggested that we apply for the Technology and Engineering Education Association of Pennsylvania Middle School Technology Education Program and their Award of Excellence. The award is given to a school that demonstrates excellence in programming, in curriculum development, and implementation. As part of the application process, we submitted curriculum guides, instructional materials, photos of student work samples, and letters of recommendation. It was through this process that the Junior High's Tech Ed program ultimately was recognized for having the program of excellence throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. It is with the utmost appreciation and thanks to our board of directors, our administrators, outstanding teachers for not only the approval and support of our program, the curriculum changes, the updates to our resources and the equipment that we implement at the junior high. But this program really took a step forward about 1.5 to 2 years ago when we were approved by the board for multiple enhancements across all those areas. So it is with a distinct pleasure that I thank you as a representative of the junior high school. Everyone's support, creativity, and innovation throughout the whole endeavor has really felt good to put a feather in the cap of the Indiana Area School District. And I just want to thank everybody from the board of directors to central office and our fantastic teachers. This is a shared honor, an accomplishment for the Indiana Area School District and our continued efforts to continuously enhance and develop our programming so that students are prepared for the future. So thank you for that opportunity, Mr. Vukovic.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Minnick. Mr. President, I'll turn it back over to you, sir.
Okay, Mike, I guess Jamie Doyle, are you on the line with us tonight, Jamie?
I am. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
You're coming in loud and clear. You have some information you want to present to us on some possible refinancing.
I do. Do you have hard copies of my presentation, or would you like me to try to screen share?
I think, Jamie, I sent a copy to Randy, so he should be able to bring that up as well.
Great. Perfect. Well, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you virtually this evening. And if there is one small positive to all of the volatility and uncertainty that we're all facing right now, it's that interest rates have continued to hover near all-time lows. So if you turn to page 1 of my handout, I always like to start off talking about market conditions, and this page contains 3 snapshots of the same index. The top snapshot just shows us we're currently at the blue line, the all-time low interest rates, and the fact that the yield curve is still very, very flat, meaning there's not a huge amount of difference between the rate in year 1 as year 30. So that all works very nicely for a refinancing opportunity. If you look at the middle section of the chart, you can see this same index going all the way back to 1993, and the red box on the right-hand side of the page are the all-time low levels that I was just describing. And if you scroll down to the very bottom section, this is a blow-up of the red box up above, so you can get a better look at really what has happened to interest rates over the past year or so. You can see the big spike upward right around the time the stay-at-home order was issued earlier this year. You can see the newest all-time lows that were just set in August of this year, and you can see that we continue to hover at very, very attractive interest rate levels in the big picture. If you go to page 2, we're going to look at what a refinancing of your 2012 bonds, your 2013 bonds, and your 2015A notes might look like. It's very similar to other refinancings that you've entertained in the past. We're proposing not to extend the debt at all. We'll still pay that off in the exact same time period, but simply to replace the old higher rates with today's lower rates. And you've been doing a great job of managing your debt portfolio, so you have pretty low rates to begin with. As we look at that second section on this page, you can see the 2012 bonds. Your average rate on that issue is about a 2.3% currently. Your 2013 bonds is about 2.25%, and your 2015A notes is about 2.31%. So again, you have very low rates to begin with, but we can even improve upon that a bit. The next section, section 3 on that page, just a reminder that to get the bank qualified interest rates, the IRS states that you can issue $10 million or less per calendar year. And again, that gets you the lower interest rate, and it gets you the shorter 5-year call feature that you've become accustomed to, which gives you maximum flexibility in the future to take advantage of refinancing opportunities. Or if you had a windfall, it would allow you to pay down the debt faster. Or in a worst case scenario, if you needed to do a debt restructuring and stretch the debt out further in the future, a 5-year call feature would be advantageous to any of those scenarios. And then that last section, section 4, we're proposing to use the dual track process just like we have in the past, whereby we would first do a competitive bank loan RFP that would go out to all of our banks contacts at PFM, as well as all of your local banks. And then we would evaluate the responses from the bank loan RFP, boil it down to true interest cost. So not just the interest rate that they're proposing, but any associated fees. And then we would ultimately compare the true interest cost on the bank loan to the bond market, and whatever produces the best economic answer for the school district is what we'll ultimately recommend. So same process as previously. If you turn to the next page, you'll see your existing debt portfolio. So as always, the top half of the page is gross debt service, meaning principal and interest on each of your various issues. And the bottom half of the page, if you scroll down a little bit more, is your local share after you receive state reimbursement on some of your issues. And we've highlighted the 3 columns, the 3 issues that we're talking about refinancing this evening. Again, that's the 2012s, the 2013s, and the 2015As. If you look at the next page, this is our summary page, and this is probably the most important page in here. So column 5 contains your existing local effort in the black column. So if you did nothing, you'd keep making the net payments in column 5 that we just looked at on the prior page. And in the blue, this is your refinancing opportunity. So again, the same 3 series we've been talking about, and you can see if we replace those old higher rates, albeit they're pretty low to begin with today's lower rates, we could generate net savings to the school district in column 8 of just over $66,000. If you start at the top of column 8 and work your way downward, you can see the bulk of that, about $63,000, could be recognized in the current fiscal year, meaning that money is already sitting in your general fund account, and when the bill comes in the spring, it would be less than it otherwise would have been by almost $63,000. And then a couple $100 in most of the remaining years thereafter. This is an estimate only, and we're usually, or you're used to me being conservative this early on in the process. I'm not being very conservative in this refunding estimate, only because, you know, we're starting from very low rates to begin with. So this is the magnitude of what I think we may be able to generate on this opportunity. Then, just for the sake of discussion, in the yellowish orange column, we are just illustrating what 1.3 million of new money might look like if you needed new money for capital improvements. And you can see a wraparound structure there that would take advantage of drop-offs in your old debt portfolio in column 5. Structure we've used many times in the past with the district. So in column 9, if you wanted $1.3 million of new money in conjunction with this refunding, you'd start off with smaller payments up front, partial payment, and then I'll call it $22,000 a year would support that new 1.3 million until your old debt dropped off, and then we start to fill in with larger payments on the new money in 2028 and 2029. So just an illustration of what that could look like. If you'd scroll up just a little bit, yep. We designed this that you know, you can just do the refunding. You don't have to do the new money, but we designed this that when you add the refunding and the new money together, you're just under that $10 million IRS calendar year limit. If you scroll to the next page, you'll see 2 sample motions if or when the board would like to proceed with either or both of the transactions. The first one's for the refunding. This would just authorize the financing team to get the paperwork in order to bring back for board consideration. As always, the financing team consists of myself as your independent financial advisor, Dinsmore and Scholl as your bond counsel, and your local solicitor would participate as always. And you'll notice it mentions all or a portion, because we might not refund all of the 2013 bonds. Again, if we want to stay under that $10 million calendar year limit, and I'll show you the mechanics of that in a minute, but that's why it says all or a portion. We would refund the maturities with the highest interest rates first, and then we would cap it and stop at the $10 million mark. We are suggesting a minimum acceptable net savings target of $50,000. As always, that's a minimum. It's not a maximum. It's my job to save you every dollar that I possibly can. But we need to fill a number in there to determine at what point you think it's worth your while. Because if we're only at $49,000 of savings, then we're not going to execute in this scenario. Likewise, there's a separate sample motion if you wanted to consider the new money, the 1.3 million that I described in that example. We could package the 2 together and stay under that $10 million calendar year limit if you wanted to. And then down below that is a sample timeline. If you were inclined to authorize the finance team with one or both motions up above, we could start the dual track process and start the bank loan RFP side of things and report back to you as early as your January 11th meeting. If we are able to lock in interest rates by your January 11th meeting, then you'd settle around mid-February. You'll notice that both of those dates say or later after them, because that's the earliest you could proceed, but you know, you can always proceed later if you so desire.
Jamie, this is Julia Kukaro. Just a quick question on that. Could we scroll back to that second motion, please? Okay, so you're plugging in the 1.3 million and you're talking about that $10 million cap. Is it possible we could double that? Anyway.
You could double the amount of new money? Sure, but if we wanted it to be bank qualified with the lower interest rates in the 5-year call, that would mean we would decrease what we're refunding by the 1.3 million that we'd be upsizing the new money.
Yeah, and
sure. And
could we run its test to see if that might work?
Sure, meaning 2.6 million of new money.
Yeah, just to see what would happen to the numbers. I mean, it's hard to say when you're talking about, because we don't know, but it strikes me that the banks might come in under 2%.
For something this short, yes. Yes. Now it will get a little longer if, you know, the wraparound on the new money, that structure determines its own length based on where your drop-offs occur in your debt portfolio. But regardless, even if you added another 1.3 million to your new money capital improvement needs, it would still be a very short transaction. So yes, you're exactly right. And I'd be happy to run that for you to take a look at.
Thank you.
If you scroll to the next page, just to go quickly through the backup schedules, and I won't belabor these because the summary really gives you all the high level details, but you can see on page 7, there's your 2015A series to be refunded. That's a bank loan and it has a 2.31% throughout in column 3. If you look at page number 8, there's your remaining 2012 series. In column 3, it has fixed rates locked in that vary from a 2.25% to a 2.35%. If you look at page 9, there's all of your 2013 outstanding bonds. And in column 3, you can see you have locked in a 2% to a 2.5%. However, on the next page was the portion we were proposing to refund on page 10. There we go. And then page 11 was the portion we were proposing to leave outstanding. Now that will change if we change the amount of new money. We'll refund less of the 2013 and there'll be more of that left outstanding. Again, assuming we want to stay within the 10 million and get the bank qualified rates in the 5-year call.
But this is the only one where we just have 2% left. So is that correct?
Right. Yeah. We'll maximize the refunding, and we're going to, we always look at it maturity by maturity. So we're going to pick the highest interest rates first to refund. If you look at page 12, this is just a calculation to show how much money in this scenario that we would need on each of the 3 series that would be refunded, principal and interest. And then page 13, the next page, is just the backup page for the savings that we looked at on the summary. So if you scroll down just a little bit more, you can see that the good news is that none of these issues receive state reimbursement, which normally that's a really bad thing. But in this case, that's a good thing. That's a positive because that means you don't have to share any of the savings with the state. So you can see that box, state's share is 0 in this particular refunding opportunity. If you go to the next page, you can see the backup for what the new money might look like. Again, assuming 1.3 million, and you can see those payments. And that concludes the mechanics, the backup schedules. So I will pause there and entertain any questions that you might have.
If this is Terry, if we would go with, well, first I'll say interest rates from what I've seen and heard are starting to tick up, correct?
We
A-
did
a
see
little-
some upticks as the vaccine news hit last Monday and more news this Monday. But I will say that there's never been more uncertainty and volatility in the market, which causes a flight to quality. Investors want nice, safe places to park their money. And I know you've heard me say that before, but it's never been more true than it is right now. So the fact that there is more investor demand than there is supply of these types of securities right now, is really keeping interest rates low. And the fact that there's going to need to be a lot of economic recovery and healing. The Federal Reserve Committee is predicting short-term interest rates will stay very, very low for the next 3 years.
Right.
So, we might not stay at these all-time low levels, but, all of the experts are suggesting that rates are going to remain low for quite some time.
Right. So my question is there a negative to following through or proposing the first motion? Can we still, if we would decide to borrow some more money, does that hurt us, not combining the two things together?
You can do that if you want to. There's pros and cons to every decision. So the pro of separating the new money from the refinancing is that in Julia's example, we can take the savings on the refunding and meet some tests so that only a small portion of the refunding counts towards your $10 million calendar year limits. And then, you could do the new money separately for a larger amount if you so chose. And that could also have bank qualified interest rates. So that's the pro. The con of separating these is you lose the economies of scale on the fixed costs of issuance. Some of those fixed costs would be duplicated if you separated this into two pieces.
How much?
Well, it depends on if it's a bank loan or a bond issue as the right answer. The upfront costs on a bank loan are lower, but the rate is higher than a bond issue where the rate is historically lower, but the costs at settlement are higher. So I'll call that fixed rate duplication a $40,000 kind of number.
But it could be a wash if the interest rates tick up 0.25%.
It absolutely could be.
Right. I mean, the reason I'm asking these questions is, again, there's a window here to make this beneficial to the district. And my opinion is we shouldn't not jump through that window with at least that first motion. Because
I agree with you, and I designed this plan to be the most efficient with the assumption that you'd want to do both possibly at the same time. But the other side of that coin is I always truly believe that you should let the needs of the school district and whatever those new money needs might be drive the financing, and not let the financing drive the plan of what you might do in capital improvements. So I think you're exactly right with that comment.
And that's where I'm going with that, is that I don't think we're going to be in a position to know if we are going to borrow more money and how much before maybe that window closes.
Jamie, this is Jared. We also have an opportunity. I know it's not immediate right now, but in our 2016 bonds will become callable here. We can probably be having another conversation in a year here about possibly refinancing those and piggybacking some new money onto those if we would need to. Not saying that interest rates will be the same, but it also can be the same conversation in another year that we can have, right?
Yep, that's a great point. Your 2016 bonds, the call date on that one is February 15 of 2022. So, assuming it makes economic sense, we'd be talking about that in the fall of 2021. So, there's a scenario where, for example, you do the 1.3 million of new money now with this refunding, and then you do whatever additional amount of new money you need with the next refunding. And then you are taking advantage of economies of scale in both cases.
What we want is flexibility because, you know, with rates, you can't predict the future. You can't even predict tomorrow in this world, let alone. So I'm not too excited about waiting another year with rates at this level. So we want to have the maximum options. Once you expect to hear back from the banks and whatnot in about a month, is that correct?
Correct.
And the earliest you could, and when would we lock in?
The earliest you could lock in would be January, your voting meeting in January.
If we did this motion tonight, we have to do
Right.
the first motion tonight. Though.
Just the first motion.
You could just pass the first motion and I could get started with that. Once the banks give us their proposals back, it would be more of a, you know, we'd either do a second RFP or it would be more of a negotiating with the winning bank and or bond market for the final amount, if you're going to change the final amount significantly.
I don't think it would be significant, but it could be double. I mean, I don't know, but when you say we have to do what's best for the district, we've got millions of dollars of things that we need things for. I mean, you know, when you look at our list, they go on for a couple pages.
Right, no doubt.
And at this rate, it pays to be flexible, I think. So maybe
I agree. Flexibility is everything right now in particular. So if you'd like me to show you a scenario for the 2.6 million new money, you know, I'm happy to do that. You know, we can get that to you for your consideration by your December meeting without disrupting the timeline too much, I think, if that's what you'd like to see.
Jamie, do you see
So Jamie,
any issue? Go ahead, sir.
no, Jared, go ahead. I'll jump in afterwards.
I know, Jamie, we've been having some conversations over the past couple years. Do you see any issue with us borrowing more new money at this time when we are still sitting on, you know, at the end of our East Pike project, roughly $6 million of money from the 2016 issuance?
Well, bond counsel will want an update on your plans to spend your existing bond proceeds. And he will also, you know, want detail on exactly what you would want to spend this additional new money on and when. Because you may recall, you know, the IRS rules are reasonable expectations are the key words, but you have to have reasonable expectations. You can spend the additional money, 85% of it within 3 years of settlement. So, you know, we would have to satisfy bond counsel that, you know, not only are you planning on spending the older money, but that you would spend the new money in a timely fashion.
Okay,
I
Jamie.
think we're going to be having, oh, I'm sorry, Walter, I interrupted. Go ahead.
That's okay, Jewel. So if we pass the first motion tonight to start the process, and we decide to add the additional 1.3 or something in that range to the total, we could still do that before the final issuance of the bonds or the final sale of the bonds.
I think the best way to handle this with the bank loan part of the dual track process is usually to start higher and then lower if you decide to do less. So, you know, in a perfect world, if you wanted to package something together and have some new money, in a perfect world, you would pick the higher number. And then, you know, if you decide to do less, you know, we would just downsize it and you would actually issue less.
So we're not obligated.
You're not obligated. No, you're on my timeline, your official vote. Let me get back to my timeline here a second. Your official vote would be in January, really. I mean, we'd have to have a pretty good idea what you wanted to be ahead of time, so as appropriately, but no, you're not locked in anything until January.
I just want to see the maximum number that you could give us on a new borrowing without blowing the 10 million rule.
Well, I mean, the answer to that is 10 million and no refunding. I mean,
Okay.
because if we're packaging them together, I'm downsizing the refunding by whatever amount of new money you'd wish to borrow.
Well, I think she did that with the second motion. The 1.3 million puts us at $9,999,999, right?
But if you
Yeah.
decided no refunding at all and you had lots of new money
Oh.
needs,
Oh,
then 10 million would all new money always counts for your $10 million calendar year limits. There's no exceptions for new money. 100% of the face value of new money counts. It's the refunding. If we separated them, it's the refunding that I can meet some special tests and only have a small portion of the refunding count against the 10 million BQ. So I'm not trying to be glib.
Well, the issue, the problem, Jamie, to be real honest, is that we've got about 3 different balls in the air at this point in time. We have a potential ESCO. We have some definite needs for an office and security area in the Eisenhower building. And then we have the timing of this window, as Terry's talking about, which I think we're all very sensitive. The problem is that the actual scope of work and or whether we do it under an ESCO or do it in a more traditional manner, the board really hasn't made those decisions yet. So we're kind of shooting in the dark. But to Julia's point, there's more than $10 million there, including the financing or the 1.3 that you'd add on, that we could certainly use and do so prudently. Another way to look at this is that originally the 10 million that we borrowed for the new school, $1.5 million of it went to architects, and in some ways, 1.3 million additional new money would simply replace some of that money for actual bricks and mortar things that we need to get done here in the district. But we just don't know at this point. But there is that fear that the window's going to close before we figure that part of it out.
I think that, at this point, from what I'm hearing, I think the first motion, and then we should put in 3 million on the second and see what happens. We can come down, as you said.
You can do that. It's easier and clearer with the process if you start a little higher and then downsize accordingly. It's easier to downsize than upsize.
So the question follow-up question, Jamie, is if we put this out at the 10 million or the 11.3 or whatever, let's say 10 million to get the bank qualified, regardless of what the new money is, and we decide not to do as much, then does the rate then change? Because now we're only going to do, 8.7 instead of 10.
Yes. The rate is dependent on the weighted average life. So, all of these scenarios we're talking about, they all have different weighted average lives depending on how far out we're going. And as I mentioned, the wrap on the new money determines its own length. So, it all is a piece of the puzzle that we'll put together to maximize the most effective transaction for the district.
and that's
Well,
why I go to-
I'm wondering whether or not, Jamie, then that we ought to look at maybe 3 scenarios, that being the case. And some of it you may have already provided here with the information you've already developed. But one of those would be to do the 10 million with $3 million worth of new funding, and see what that does to the potential savings and how that would work out, as well as just simply doing the refinancing or doing the 1.3 as you proposed.
We can do that.
We have to rewrite your motion.
You can change the amount in the motion to you know, if you want that to be 3 million, you can absolutely change that.
Walter, what do you think? I mean, Terry.
What I was gonna, follow-up question I was gonna have on that, Julia, was whether or not you couldn't do it, the motion as $10 million or 9,999,000, as the total authorization, with the amount of refinancing and new money to be determined later. Is that a possibility?
Well, when I send the RFP out to the banks, I kind of have to know because I know what the final maturity is of the refinancing, but the new money part determines its own new final maturity date based on how much it is. So it all factors into that weighted average life. So I would have to make some sort of assumption. For example, if the new money was 1.3 or 3 million.
Jamie, is it, we have an audit and finance committee meeting next Monday, and then we have a follow-up board meeting this early December. Is that too late of a timeline to get this all done under the kind of the window you're looking at?
That would work fine.
So maybe we can have some further conversation and the board members can have some time to think about this over the next week, talk about it again in audit and finance next week, and kind of make a decision and be able to give you some more direction as to what they're looking at as far as new money compared to refinancing, and then pass a motion. I believe our board meeting is December 7th, maybe?
That's correct.
That would work fine. Because that's still, even though there's holidays in there, that still gives me a month before your January meeting.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned that people don't, you know, with the virus surging again, that you don't have as many people working. I mean, I'm concerned that you can get it done that quickly. That's why I'm thinking we float the 3 million in new money just to see what happens. Not because we know exactly, you know, we can decide next week. We can always pull you back if we'd have to, wouldn't we? I mean, I'm definitely in favor of motion 1. I would like to go to 3 million in motion 2, although I understand what you're saying, Jared. We do need to discuss this. The question is the timing and what's happening, and everything's so volatile right now.
Why do they, you know, as I said earlier, I don't think we're going to have a figure for a minimum of 3 to 4 months of how much, you know, if we want to borrow more money and how much. We're at least 3 or 4 months away from that.
And then we're probably almost a year, sir, into actually needing the money. And I think that's why I kind of brought up, we have another, you know, and I'm not saying interest rates are going to be at this all-time low, but I think from hearing what Jamie said is I don't know that even less than a year from now, interest rates are going to be a whole lot different. And we have an opportunity in the fall to take advantage again of economies of scale with the refinancing and issue of new debt at the same time with the refinancing of the 2016 bonds, which at which point we may actually then have the need for the cash and a better idea of exactly what we are going to need the money for.
I think with all due respect, I think if these banks come in at 1.4 or something, we're going to be like, we don't want to wait. And the short-term rate should stay down. Yeah, but I mean, we're talking a different ball game here. So, you know,
Julia,
so my feeling would be to try to lock in a number and see what happens. But
Julia, if that's, you know, listening to this other conversation, then maybe we just go conservative on the 1.3 million in new borrowing for this year, maximizing the return for the refinancing. Kind of let Terry's committee play it out to see where this thing goes. Then if you need another 1.3 or whatever that number is to actually finish what we're doing, take a look at the numbers then next fall.
yeah, I can live with that. I mean, that's a nice compromise. Yeah.
Yeah, so we do both motions tonight.
That would be my understanding.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
I think it's already been said, but I just want to be absolutely certain. The first motion is to allow us to refinance things so we get a refund. The second motion is getting the paperwork and everything ready in case we want to borrow money. But it's not saying that we're going to borrow money. Is that correct?
Correct. The official action, if we stay on the current timeline, the official board approval on the new money would be at the earliest at your January 11th meeting.
Approval or disapproval.
Right.
But that's when the vote would be. Okay.
Exactly. And that's part of why you saw in the summary page, we have them structured as two separate series. So, you know, if you decide not to do the new money, it's sort of easy to drop that series.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions for Jamie?
Yeah, Walter, my question is, what committee's making these motions tonight? Mine or Terry's?
I believe
Finance.
it's your motion under finance, Jewel.
Okay, okay, all right. Okay, so Jared, are you going to write up that motion at 1.3 then? On the new money?
Yeah. Yes, I will.
I think it's already in there. I can't read this screen because I can't see tonight, but.
Yeah, the new money motion is not on the board agenda right now, but I can, in between taking the motions here, try and get it typed in there.
Okay, thank you.
I have one more question for Jamie. Jamie, is it possible that the lenders that would be bidding on this, would they twist their rates to get us to borrow that additional $1.3 million?
No, because they're not going to know, you know, they're going to bid on what we put in the RFP. You know, they're not going to know.
Yeah, I don't want them to force our hand by giving us a lower rate on the second motion.
No.
Okay, all right.
It'll come down to weighted average life. I mean, each of these series will have a different weighted average life.
Okay, good.
But that's a great question.
Okay, are there any other questions from the board on this? Otherwise, we've got some other things to cover this evening.
Thanks,
Nothing
Jamie.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Jamie, thank you very much. Okay, we're down to approval of the minutes and the agenda. May I have a motion to approve our minutes from the last meeting and our agenda for this evening?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved in second. We'll vote for this in the negative. Anybody opposed to accepting the minutes and the agenda, please say no or nay at this point. Chair assumes that the motions carry unanimously. Board reports. Uta, it looks like Indiana County Technology Center.
Yep. We met on October the 27th and unfortunately had to accept some resignations, but also hired some new staff. 13 of the ICTC welding students passed their American Welding Society certifications. We accepted some donations, including a 3D printer that was used during the early part of the COVID pandemic, making face shields and devices for the hospital and other areas, including our schools. And then the ICTC LPN program is ranked #2 in the Northeast for 2020. And so lots of good things going on there.
Okay, Uta, thank you. Barb, IU 28.
Well, I was going to report that we have a meeting tomorrow, but then I realized I wasn't at the last meeting, so you didn't hear the report from the last meeting. Last meeting was pretty routine with normal hirings and accepting resignations. But the biggest news is that Jim Wagner is retiring. And so the Aaron and Mary unit is currently accepting applications for a new director.
Well, that's bad news on Mr. Wagner. Anything else, Barb?
I was looking for the fact sheet to see if there's anything else, and I do not recall off the top of my head. I'll try to find it later, and if I see anything, I'll send it to the board.
Okay, thanks, Barb. Okay, Tom, looks like academic and extracurricular. Your turn.
Thanks, Walter. We had a meeting on November 2nd. I'll try to be brief. Mike, if I skip over something, please jump in. We had a request about the exchange students. The committee recommends that due to the COVID that we do not permit foreign exchange students in the 2021 school year, and hopefully bring it back in 21-22. We had a presentation about the math curriculum updates and the justifications, and the committee supports the change in recommendation, the change in the curriculum that's outlined in the agenda tonight. We have a TEM curriculum for grades 4 and 5, and Mike, can you elaborate what that's about?
Yes, sir. We're looking at some additional programming in STEM-related fields areas for our students at the 4 or 5 level. We're going to pilot out with Dave Sheeran at the 4 or 5 buildings, and it's going to supplement and enrich our current STEM programming that we have going on there. As you know, the board made a division to improve and increase some STEM programming to help bolster what we're doing at the middle school and high school, and this is part of that efforts to do that and improve that at that area, sir.
Thank you, Mike. The committee supports the addition of this resource. We had a review of the PDE graduation requirements, the update of the Keystone exams, and how that affects the high school. We support the administration's updated graduation requirements. Those are primarily modified because of the COVID situation. We talked a little bit about the small business research project with IUP. And there's a chart running around, Mike, that we're trying to get people to sign up for outreach on. We also discussed COVID reopening, COVID-19 and reopening, what was going on at the time, which is probably a month out of date now, it seems. So your letters have been keeping us up with that. That's a constantly changing event. There was a school health and safety grant that we needed to apply for, and this committee is supporting the administration on the use of the funds. Mike, what was the NAEP? What was that about?
NAEP testing, it's our understanding that the junior high, it's a test administered to 4th and 8th graders, that the junior high in one of our 4 or 5 buildings will be selected for NAEP testing, which is a test they use for benchmarking across the world. It's one, when you look at, hey, how are United students in the United States comparing to our counterparts, that's the one benchmark they use is NAEP testing. We were selected to be issuing the NAEP test, but we haven't heard anything from anyone this year now. The good news is the test is not supposed to be administered till March, Mr. Harley, but I thought we'd hear something other than the original correspondence. The buildings haven't heard anything about the next steps at this point, sir.
No action at this point. We have a PDE winter Keystone testing update. And I believe we have to administer those tests this winter, Mike?
Yeah, unfortunately, Mr. Harley, the federal government, from my understanding, sir, did not waive any Keystone or PSSA requirements like they did the year before. And the state's saying, look, if we want to get the money, the state wants to get the money from the federal government, a condition of getting that, receiving that funds may be the continuation of summative assessments, which I think, if anything, at this point in time, is a mistake to go through, and I wish the federal government would reconsider that. I'm all for assessing our kids and understanding where they're at, but I think at this current time, I think it's a mistake not to postpone. However, I understand the state's position that they're doing what they're told because of the money that comes their way, and I think we'll move forward with Winter Keystones as identified, sir.
And since the states have been moving forward and we have to also, so there's not much discussion on that. We did have a rather extensive discussion of the literacy program, several presentations on what was going on. The preliminary numbers look like we're doing much better. We're expecting to see some improvement in those in that success with the effort that the board's made on providing resources for this critical component. And the committee continues to support and encourages the district to keep moving down this path. That's the report, Walter. We have a couple, we have five motions. Can I take them together or should I separate any out?
Take them all together unless a board member wants to pull an individual motion out, Tom.
I move that the board approves 5.2, 5.3, 5.4, 5.5, and 5.6 as presented on the agenda.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, it's been moved in second on 5.2 to 5.6 inclusive. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion from the board, or any further comments from Mike?
Walter, the budget number for the math curriculum is in our budget. That's using some money from last year and this year to accomplish the $157,000. This will put the math curriculum on par across the district. It'll eliminate some wild hairs that are going on. So we'll have a consistent math program. I'm excited about that. We're seeing a lot of cooperation between the buildings and between the grades. So I would like to point that out, that is a budget number that we have budgeted for.
Okay, Tamara, your mic's hot. Anything you'd like to add?
No, sorry.
Okay, anything else from the board or Mike? Nothing heard. We'll take these again as a negative vote. If you wish to oppose these motions, please say no or nay at this point. Nothing heard. The chair assumes a unanimous approval. Uta, looks like policy and personnel is the next item on our agenda.
Okay. I do not have a committee report because we did not have a meeting. So is there any of these motions that we need to pull out? Otherwise, otherwise we'll do them all at once.
6.4, Uta.
Okay. Any others? Okay, then I move that we approve 6.2, 6.3, 6.5, 6.6, and 6.7.
Second.
Second.
Okay, we've got 2 seconds on that one. Is there any further discussion, questions, or comments from the board on those motions? Okay, nothing heard. We'll vote for those in the negative. If anybody objects to any of those motions, please say no or nay at this point in time. Nothing heard. The chair assumes that those motions pass unanimously. Okay, Uta, 6.4.
Okay, 6.4, that a 5-year employment agreement between Indiana Area School District and Jared Cronauer, business manager, effective July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2026, be approved as presented.
Second.
Okay.
Okay, we now have a second on that. Mike, is there anything you'd like to say at this point before I turn it over to the board discussion?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. What you have in front of you tonight's motion is a great opportunity to secure someone who's given a lot to this district over the last several years and put us in a position to be financially solvent during these tough, turbulent times. When you look at the assessment appeal throughout the county, the pandemic, and some other issues we've gone through, Jared's been able to help navigate us through this process, and your leadership also matters. So it's a great opportunity. I'm proud of the work that Jared's done, proud that he's on our team. It has my full support, and I thank you for considering it, and I appreciate your time, Mr. President.
Okay, Mike, thank you. Are there questions, comments, or discussion from the board on this particular motion?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to support this motion. I've worked extensively with Jared over the years that I've been on the board, and I think that he has really been improved remarkably and seems to enjoy what he's doing, and is certainly in the last year has been extraordinarily effective with the pandemic planning on all fronts. And I feel that within this package that we're talking about, that the raise is reasonable, and I do believe he's taking a pay freeze for a year, so I'm supporting the motion.
This is Jared Walter. I'm going to also support the motion. Like Julia said, I think, well, I don't think, Jared has led us through some tough times here. I think we've gone 3 years without a tax increase. And I think as I've gotten to know Jared also, you know, he's an upstanding person, and he also has the district, you know, best interest in mind, and he's frugal as a, you know, personally. So I think that's a good thing for us. So that's all.
Uta, your mic was hot. Did you want to say anything? Any other comments from other board members?
I will just say that, that I appreciate that Jared offered to or agreed to a pay freeze. I think that says a lot to his dedication to our district and the community. And so I will support this motion.
Okay, thanks, Tamara. Anybody else? Okay, I do want to thank Jared also for his service. But one of the more interesting things as a taxpayer is that while the board may have chartered the course for not raising taxes for the last several years, it's really taking Jared's talents and his hard work and effort to see that was brought to fruition, and I certainly thank you for that. Any final comments? At this point in time, I would like to take a roll call vote, please.
Tammy Blank,
Yes.
Cinda Brode,
Yes.
Julia Tamarki Kukro,
Yes.
Tom Harley,
Yes.
Mr. Carr,
Yes.
Mrs. Leeper,
Yes.
Mrs. Lowry,
Yes.
Mr. Schroth,
Yes.
Barb Barker.
No.
Motion passes 8-1.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Let's move on to buildings and grounds and transportation. Terry, you're up.
Okay, I do have a committee meeting report. We met prior to the meeting, board meeting tonight. We had a gentleman from Constellation come in and gave an overview of ESCO, which is an energy conservation program that we've been involved with in the district since 2012. The criteria in the program has changed since then, so we asked him to come in and give a presentation. So that went well. We have some opportunities there to look at some things. Then briefly discussed the Eisenhower Elementary architect proposal discussion. We pushed that off till January because we weren't in a situation to discuss that item. The third topic, we did have some discussion about the bond refinancing also at the committee meeting. And then we heard from Nick from White Township about using our facilities, but we put that on hold until we see what's happening with the COVID virus. We briefly talked about the Pike roof replacement project. We, want to continue to move forward and move into a advertising stage here in the new year, early in the new year. And Greg Trout gave us a brief update on the high school life skills and chairlift, and both of those projects at the senior high should be completed the first or second week of December. And then we had a brief discussion on needlepoint bipolar ionization installation into our HVAC systems. So Mr. Trout is going to work at having some information for us again here shortly. That was it, Walter.
Okay, so it's the recommendation of the committee not to go with 7.2 at this point. Is that correct, Terry?
No, I mean, we could go with this. We just haven't defined the scope of what we're going to provide to Buckhart Horn until January.
You're the chair.
I would say let's wait. We can wait till at least the next meeting or a January meeting. I'm going to pass on reading it.
Okay. All right. Then that means Julia, Audit and Finance Committee's up next.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I gave my committee report at the last meeting, and we're going to have another committee meeting, which ought to be very interesting this next week, next Monday night, where we're going to get to discuss these bond issues and the escrow project. There's not often, the one slightly positive thing I can say about this whole awful pandemic experience is that it has opened up financing opportunities because of the money that the Federal Reserve has allotted and also the Congress of the United States. So I do have a number of motions on the table. So there's the, I don't know if anybody wants to, can we move it up a little bit? The scroll, okay. Is that it, 8.4? No, there's another motion. We have the escrow motions. Okay, I think I'm going to ask that we take the last two last, but I think we can take the ones before that, which would be 8.1 through 8.4. I think they're all relatively straightforward. So unless somebody wants to hear a separate motion, I think I could move 8.1 through 8.5. Okay, hearing none, I make a motion that we approve motion 8.1, committee meeting report, 8.2, the approval of bills, 8.3, 2019-2020 budget transfers, 8.4, the postage machine, to be passed this evening.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded on 8.1 through 8.4.
Walter, before you go on, I don't think we need to approve 8.1. That's just the report.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so we're 8.2 to 8.4. Is there any further questions, comments, or discussion from the board? Nothing heard. We'll again vote in the negative. If you oppose any of these motions, please say no or nay at this point. Nothing heard. The chair assumes a unanimous approval by the board members present. Okay, Julia, go ahead with 8.5 and 8.6.
Okay, I'm going to wait. I think that we have discussed these just earlier when Jamie was with us from the bond, from our bond functioning. I think Cinda, when she asked her question, was very succinct about what she wanted to know, and I think that's the key issue. So we are merely authorizing PFM financial advisors to start the process of seeing where we might be on the refinance of these 3 bonds. And Jared, you can tell us again, the 2012, 2 of them are ESCO bonds, so that's 2012 and 2013, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then the 2015 was the senior high and other things, right?
Yes, it was a multiple of smaller projects done across the district, with the bulk of it being spent at the senior high.
Okay, she's putting in here a minimum net target savings of 50,000. I think it might be a little bit higher. So that's the one that to me is very key tonight. And then the other thing we discussed earlier was the second report, which would be just the possibility with these rates of new financing. So I would make the motion that the Board of School Directors of the Indiana Area School District does hereby authorize the administration to work with PFM Financial Advisors, LLC, as financial advisor, Dinsmore and Scholl, LLP, as bond counsel, and the local solicitor, Mr. Rapak, in conjunction with issuance of the general obligation bond Series A of 2020 for the purpose of currently refunding all or a portion of the school district Series 2012, Series of 2013, and Series A of 2015 via a competitive dual track process between a bank loan and a bond issue with a minimum net savings target of $50,000.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded on the refinancing. Julia, do you have any comments on this as chair of the Finance Committee?
Well, aside from just the general explanation of what Jamie said, I think this is what we need to do. It would, at the very least, it would save us a little bit of money. And right now, every penny counts. But there's, it's the place to start to see what the market's going to bear with us. And it looks like the rates are going down, maybe ticking up a little bit here and there last week, but the rates environment is good for this right now.
And I think, Madam Vice President, that it also does not commit the district to anything at this point. All you are doing with this motion is authorizing PFM to really float the bids in order to see what the market results can be if the board would so choose to refinance these. And that final decision would be made in January once Jamie comes back with the results of the bid process for this refinancing. The January vote would really be what locks the board into the new month or the refinancing.
Jared, is this essentially the refinancing like the refinancing we've done in previous years?
Yes, it's the exact same process anytime we have done refinancing in the past couple years.
And I think too, Jared, this motion would not extend the term, the payoffs of these new bonds. We would be paying them off at the same time frame, but we would save a minimum net of $50,000.
Yes, sir. You're not extending kind of the life of the 2012, 2013, or 2015 debt. You're just refinancing it. Still kind of keeping similar principal payments in place on those bonds. You are just looking to save some money on the interest you're paying on that debt.
What is the fee to do this through PFM?
I'm trying to think of what it has been in the past.
Usually a percentage. It's not, it's.
I want to say between bond counsel, between PFM, and between the solicitor, the fee is probably around $40,000 all in for the 3 of them.
So does that mean we only save $10,000?
No, the savings is net any fees. So the savings is still the $60,000.
Okay, thank you.
Jared, do we pay those fees going in, or do we pay those fees only if we pass these 2 motions in the future?
The fee is only if I believe if we actually go through with the refinancing, because the fees come out of the refinancing money itself. I mean, for PFM, the work that they are doing here, the following of these bonds, we do not pay like an annual fee to PFM. They are constantly monitoring our bonds, so coming up with these refinancing opportunities without being charged an annual fee to the district. So their fee comes out, I believe, when we've done this in the past, it has always come out after their actual refinancing has happened.
And Mr. Harley, I can answer that question. I asked the same question last Thursday at a board meeting where we were refinancing. It comes out after. If the board decides they don't want to move forward with this, even if work has been put in, there's no fee that would be assessed.
So the fee has
doing business.
So the fee has nothing to do then with the second motion. It's only with the refinancing and the first motion, correct?
I'm sorry, Ms. Broad. I'm not quite sure what you were asking there.
The fee that we're talking about only has to do with the refinancing motion. The fee is charged because of the work that they do with the refinancing. Is there going to be another fee, or would there be a fee associated with the second motion where we're talking about borrowing? Or is that, if there's a fee for that, is that already included in the refinancing fee?
The fee is the same for the issuance of all the money put together. And that's where I think what Jamie was talking about earlier is there's an economies of scale if you do both the new money and the refinancing at the same time, because their fee is not based on, I don't know necessarily the amount of money that is borrowed, but the process that they have to go through. So they're kind of going through the exact same process, whether it's a refinancing or whether it's new money. And their fee is pretty much the exact same, no matter which options you take. So if you do both at the same time, you are saving some money because you are doing both at the exact same time. So the fee is really tied to both of the fee is pretty much the same whether you do both. If you do one, you pretty much have the exact same fee. Just use the
But
refinance.
if we would go to the 2016, the way she was saying, then you'd have to pay again. But we're trying to roll these into one motion, like they're companion motions, right? That's how I took it, what she said.
Yes, and when you look at refinancing the 2016 in another year, you're going to pay the fee all over again. Anytime they have to do a refinancing and issue new money, whether it's a refinancing or new money, you're going to pay a fee. In this situation, if you pass both of these motions and you actually go forward with both of them, you are paying a fee that's pretty much the exact same fee for both.
Yeah, that's why I was arguing for the 3 million, not the 1.3 or whatever we said. That's where the number that went in, I was hoping to go a little bit higher because we get, we might want it. We may be able to make up our minds by January. I don't know. Did we vote on this yet?
No, Julia, I was just allowing the board to have, have their comment period. And so at this point, I'll ask, is there any additional comments, questions, or discussion from the board on 8.5? Nothing heard at this point in time. Let's go ahead with a roll call vote. Jared, if you would, please.
Cinda Brode?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Water, are we voting on 8.5 and 8.6? Please clarify.
8.5 only.
Only 8.5.
Okay, I understand. I just wanted to make sure that I understood this correctly.
Yeah, we took these one at a time. We're voting only on 8.5. Go ahead again, Jared, please.
Julia Tamarki Kukuro?
Yes.
Tom Harley?
Yes.
Mr. Kerr?
Yes.
Mrs. Leeper? Mrs. Leeper?
Yes, I'm sorry. I thought I responded. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm sorry. Mrs. Lowry?
Yes.
Mr. Schroth?
Yes.
Barb Barker?
Yes.
Tammy Blank.
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
Okay, Julia, you want to go ahead with 8.6?
Now, can we scroll? Okay, very good. All right, I'm going to move that the Board of School Directors of the Indiana Area School District does hereby authorize the administration to work with PFM Financial Advisors, LLC as financial advisor, Dinsmore and Stoll, LLP as bond counsel, and the local solicitor in conjunction with issuance of the General Obligations Bond Series B of 2020 for the purpose of providing funding for capital projects in the approximate amount of $1.3 million via a competitive dual track process between a bank, loan and a bond issue.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, but since it was not on the original agenda, that I believe we have to have public comment on this at this point. Is that correct?
That is accurate.
Okay. Is there
I
anybody?
was not on the one released to the public, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, then that is correct.
Is there anybody in the public that's attending the meeting that would have comment on 8.6? Going once?
Yes, Walter. I see that. Can you hear me? This is Josie Cunningham.
Okay, Josie, go ahead, please.
This 8.5, I understand, that is going to be allowing them to pursue. This is not actually going for the 1,300,000. Is that correct? This is just allowing or exploring. I'm kind of concerned about moving so quickly on this borrowing. I really do think that you need to take a deep breath and look at what's going to happen over the next several weeks and or months. I think borrowing might not be right now the right thing. And the second thing, in conjunction with all this, and for capital projects, I'm a little concerned about what I'm surmising, and probably maybe wrongly, about the project at Eisenhower that you have to examine again as to exactly what you want to do. I'm all for having a safe school, but I am concerned about borrowing at this time when it's very volatile. Mrs. Kukrow said it's volatile. I do agree with her on that. Volatile enough to allow low interest rates, but volatile enough to have the market go berserk at some time. I mean, we are teetering on whatever. So I think caution, I'm urging caution. I kind of think that that's where I stand, and I'm sure many members of the public would also agree with me. So that's my concern.
Thank you, Josie. Is there anybody else on the call that would like to add public comment on this motion? Okay, nothing heard. It's now open to board comment and discussion. Anything the board members would like to say as far as discussion, questions, or comments?
Mr. President, I support the motion. It doesn't obligate us. We don't, we're not, this came up. This is an opportunity. These rates have dropped. I think we're wise to see where banks would put us. It's almost a rating of our district to see where they think we are. I mean, they're going to be evaluating us and looking at our numbers, as Jamie does all the time from PFM. And they're going to come back with an answer. And we're going to be either with the market, because of what the market will bear, or we're not. So it doesn't obligate us. But certainly, it gives us an additional option, which we are not locked into. All this is doing is saying, we're locking it in. It's a companion motion to the one before this. So it's giving us an additional option, which we may or may not use. It's not as if we're saying tonight we're going to borrow extra money, because I'm quite fiscally conservative, as I think everybody knows. But when this opportunity may not come up again, we could see bonds skyrocket in February. So who knows what's going to happen? But I'd like to know where we stand in the market. I think we've improved our financial status remarkably in the last several years. And we've been very disciplined about it, and we've actually been able to show a surplus. So I would like to know, and that's why I'm supporting this, just to see what happens here.
Okay, other board members, questions, comments, or further discussion?
Yeah, Walter, this is Uda. I'm really concerned that we're even asking or trying to see where we stand for over $1 million more of borrowing when I haven't heard that we really have a project that we would put this towards. And so it just really concerns me that in the climate with the pandemic and the economic situation in Indiana County, I just am really concerned that we're putting the cart before the horse.
Okay, Uta, thank you. Tom, looks like your mic lit up.
As I understand it, doing both of these at a similar time frame, both 8.5 and 8.6, has a advantage on the fees. We certainly have known capital expenses that are not funded at this point. It doesn't cost us anything to take this look. We're certainly going to go after the savings. Whether we exercise this or not, we have to find a reason to do it. But we have to, if we pass this motion tonight, we'll at least know what the facts will be in December or January. If we don't pass this motion tonight, we'll just be guessing. So it doesn't cost us anything. It doesn't mean that we're going to go borrow the money, but there's certainly some advantages to looking at it.
Okay, anybody else?
Yes. Oh, Barbara, go ahead. I see you on there. I'll wait.
Okay, thank you, Cinda. I just want to say I'm upset about the transparency of this motion, that most things in our board go to committee and then we work them up to the board. Rather, tonight we had a presentation and it was thrown as a last minute agenda item, and that the public doesn't know about this. And so, I'm sure tomorrow and even tonight, I'll be having phone calls of why is this district contemplating borrowing more money? I've sat on this board for 3 years now, and we still haven't been able to figure out how to deal with Doug Steve's money, and yet to borrow more. I really question why this is here, unless somebody has a plan that they're trying to push something through.
No, I don't think anybody has a plan. It's just a market opportunity that's come along. We don't have to spend it, but it did go through committee tonight. So, it has been fast. I'm not going to say that, but this whole market has moved so fast. Everything's moving faster than anybody can predict. It's simply a look at an opportunity. It's not a promise to pay. Nobody's signed a note yet. And we may not. We may not, but I do know we're very underfunded on our capital reserve in terms of deferred maintenance. We've got the turf coming up. We have the East Pike roof. We have safety and security issues. It's been outlined to us over the years about what we have to do to make ourselves as safe and secure, and nobody's giving it to us for free. So that's all I'm saying. So I don't think that this is coming out of nowhere and that we're shocking the public. It's not like we're asking to borrow $20 million. We're putting it down at about 1.3, and I think it's certainly, we can handle the debt service, but we don't know what it would be because we don't know what the market would tell us what our rate would be yet. So it's nice to know. It's nice to know where you sit from a credit position.
Julia.
Mr. President, is the public still allowed to address the issue?
No.
Josie, this is Walter.
All right, at the end of the meeting then, thank you.
At the end of the meeting, you'll have your public comment, but we're trying to maintain the same operational mode that we have historically in all of our meetings, where the board meeting is the board meeting. We certainly want public comment before the motions and after the agenda is completed, but we reserve the discussions for the committees so thank you for understanding that. back to the board now. Tom, did you have something?
I just wanted to echo Julia's comment about the market. We're looking at interest rates in the 2 to 3% range. It's an opportunity. We definitely want to exercise if the opportunity, if it turns out to be an opportunity in January. It's a market-driven thing. I apologize to Barb for the speed of this, but quite frankly, I was surprised that there was a $50,000 to $60,000 savings by refinancing bonds that we thought we borrowed at the lowest rate 5 years ago. So it's worth looking at. It doesn't cost us anything. It's only get some facts on the table for us.
I mean, if some bank comes back that they want 2.5%, I mean, I'm going to be shocked. But I want to know if there's somebody out there that's all I'm saying. I just want to know how we're looked at it from a credit perspective in the marketplace.
Okay, other board members, questions, comments, or discussion on the item?
Yes. I was going to support this with reservations because I know that the community is not in any mood or any position to be willing to have us borrow money. We have not spent the money that was forced upon us when we were forced to borrow $10 million that we didn't want. And that money's not spent. The projects are not done. I understand there have been lots of issues with architects and the pandemic and other things, but if I thought it was just a situation where we were just looking to see how much we could get and how we could get it, and it was a one-time opportunity, then maybe. But we were told that we can also do this again next year. And hopefully in a year, our unemployment situation in the county will be different. Hopefully the economic situation and the situation in the whole country will be different. During this meeting, I've already had texts about why is the board borrowing money, and I totally understand that. So I think that's almost like going shopping for something when you know you can't afford it, and then when you don't get to do it, you're even more disappointed. So I'm not going to be able to support this.
I'd like to say we're not borrowing money. We're refinancing under motion 1, but we haven't borrowed anything yet. It's just a look. If it upsets you that much, I'll make a move to table it until we can discuss it at committee next Monday night.
I understand we're not borrowing money. I understand that we went ahead and did the refinancing. That's fine. I'm just saying that the community is not going to be favorable looking at us for borrowing money, number one. Number two, I understand that this is just looking at it, but it's just like I said, you go shopping and you see something you want, and then when you can't have it, it's harder to give it up. I think we need to wait.
Well, then I'll move to table.
I'd like to move to table it.
What?
I was
I'll
going to
move
move
to table because we have a committee meeting Monday night.
Yeah, I was going to move to table it, but I'll second your table if somebody has to second that.
Okay, the motion has been made to table and second. There's no discussion at this point. All those opposed to table, well, I'll tell you what, let's do a roll call. Jared, let's do a roll call on this so we're sure we have the right vote.
Can I make a comment since is this discussion period?
Unfortunately, Julia, once you moved to table, that kind of ended the discussion.
So Walter, can you clarify what we're voting, whether or not to table?
Yes, we're voting whether or not to table. Okay, so the question then is, do we end the discussion at this point in time, simply put the motion back on the table, allow Julia to further vet it at her committee, and then if the committee's recommendation at some future board meeting is to bring it back off the table for the board's consideration, then they can certainly recommend that we take another look at this motion. That's all we're voting on. We're not approving this. We're not disapproving it. We're just simply not taking any action on it officially at this point in time.
So
Before
Walter, the question is, do you vote to table this? Is that the question we're answering?
well, you have to vote once it's the motion's, Ron,
I
maybe you
understand
can.
that. I just need clarification.
Yeah, no,
so that we're not
she's correct.
confused.
The answer is correct, Uta. You
Yes.
have made a motion and a second to table this motion. That is what you're voting upon right now.
So if you vote yes, then that's to table it.
Correct.
And if you vote no, then we're gonna continue the further discussion if
Correct.
the majority vote.
Correct.
Okay, any other questions before we take the vote? Nothing heard. Jared, go ahead with the roll call, please.
Julia Tamarki Kukrow,
Yes.
Tom Harley,
Yes.
Mr. Kerr,
Yes.
Mrs. Leeper,
Yes.
Mrs. Lowry,
No.
Mr. Schroth,
No.
Barb Barker,
Yes.
Tammy Blank,
Yes.
Cinda Brode.
No.
Motion passes 6-3.
Okay, Julia, it'll be up to you to take this up. I do want to point out, though, a statement that Barb made in her comment is not correct. It was discussed at our meeting of the Finance Committee earlier this evening, so I want to be sure that record stands corrected.
Building and grounds.
It was actually discussed that we put it into buildings and grounds because the opportunity came up.
Okay, but again, I don't want to discuss it, but I want to make sure that the statement that's made that it didn't go to committee is corrected. At this point in time, we're down to item 9, closing. We have no discussion item. 9.2 is public comment on agenda items. Josie, I think you had indicated a wish to comment.
I apologize for speaking out of turn a few moments earlier. I thank you for correcting me, Mr. President. What concerns me most about this discussion back and forth is the lack or the appearance, and of course, perception is everything. I've been told that many, many times by many, many people. The perception of not having transparency. And if I remember correctly, many of you, the board members, ran on a record or ran on promising that there would be more transparency and decisions on the board. Now, I understand the haste if there is an emergency. I understand the haste for making a decision and bringing it forward and voting on it. There is no emergency with borrowing money. For 3 years, you've held the line against taxes, and I do appreciate that, and so do many in the community. Borrowing right now is kind of iffy, and I still hope that transparency will reign supreme with the board. I try to read all the meetings, the committee meetings. I'm hoping that just because an opportunity presents itself immediately, that haste sometimes can make waste. So I hope you'll take that to heart. Thank you.
Okay, Josie, thank you. Is there any other public comment? Nothing heard. 9.3, we had some enclosures. 9.4, there was a notice of executive session that we held. It actually started around 6:20 to discuss personnel and attorney matters and school safety. 9.5, there is going to be a reorganization meeting on Monday, December the 7th at 7 p.m. And then there will be a regular meeting on that same night, immediately following the reorg meeting for general purposes. Please note that there will only be one board meeting in December, and that will be the one on December 7th. Our next committee meetings are Audit and Finance on November 23rd at 5:30 p.m. And may I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Anybody objecting? Nothing heard. We stand adjourned. I want to thank everybody for attending tonight. It was another good meeting. Good evening, everyone.